It's the real news. I'm Aaron Mate. For years, the U.S. has waged a drone war inside Yemen that it says targets Al-Qaeda. Well, a new report says that when it comes to Yemen, the U.S. and Al-Qaeda are effectively on the same side. The Associated Press reports that the U.S.-backed Saudi-led coalition in Yemen has made secret deals with Al-Qaeda in Yemen, known as Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, or AQAP. According to this new report, the coalition has paid AQAP fighters to leave key cities and towns with their weapons and stolen cash in hand. Hundreds of these Al-Qaeda fighters have even been recruited to join the Saudi-led coalition in its fight against Houthi rebels. The Associated Press spoke to AQAP members about their role.
تواجدنا في الجبهات والصفوف لا نخدم به أجندة التحالف وإنما لنصرة الإسلام والقتال ضد الحوثيين.
كل من يشارك في الجبهات يعلم ذلك يقينا بمشاركتنا، وقد كانت المشاركة إما بالقتال الحقيقي مع إخواننا المسلمين في اليمن، وإما بالدعم بالسلاح وبجميع ما نستطيع أن ندعم فيه الجبهات.
The Associated Press says that the coalition-backed militias have actively recruited Al-Qaeda fighters because they are such exceptional combatants. And all this is happening as the Saudi-led coalition's key ally, the U.S., looks the other way. Joining me is Al-Ahmed, founder and director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs. Ali, the details in this article, I imagine, will not surprise you because you've been warning about this for a long time, as have others, but they're still quite striking. I want to read you one section, one revelation from it. It says that one Yemeni commander who was put on the U.S. terrorism list for Al-Qaeda ties last year continues to receive money from the United Arab Emirates, which is a key U.S. ally, to run his militia. His own aide told the AP. Another commander, recently granted $12 million for his fighting force by Yemen's president, has a known Al-Qaeda figure as his closest aide. Ali, if you could explain to us what is going on here, this tie, increasingly growing tie between the U.S.-backed Saudi coalition in Yemen and Al-Qaeda.
I think calling them growing ties is not accurate. The Al-Qaeda has been always, since its inception, working with certain governments. These governments are mostly in the Gulf, and the United States knew about it. Because you cannot have a military group, armed group in the region around or anywhere around the world without state support. It's not possible, because you need a lot of money to buy weapons, for housing, and so on. Al-Qaeda is one of those organizations that has had relations with the Saudi government, with other government in the Gulf, and with Ali Abdullah Saleh, and now with Hadi, with the UAE. Taliban is the same with Pakistan and Iran even. So you have just this secret has been open for a long time. BBC reported on it before. We wrote about it. I wrote about it in 2015 on CNN, and I said that the Saudi Air Force is basically the Air Force for Al-Qaeda, because the number one, and this is not just an opinion, this is fact, the most effective force against Al-Qaeda anywhere around the world has been the Yemeni forces. People call them Houthis or Ansarullah, who have been able to take territories from Al-Qaeda in a flash, in a very quick time, and defeat them and hand them defeat until the Saudi war started. And that could have been one of the reasons that the Saudis waged their war on Yemen, because if they had waited long enough, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula would have been destroyed completely. So yes, the Saudi government has been paying Al-Qaeda, has been working with Al-Qaeda for a long time. Let us remember, some of Al-Qaeda leaders who were killed in US drones were in Saudi prisons, and they were let out to go to Yemen so they can fight and kill and behead people. ISIS is the same.
Ali, you're making a very explosive charge there. You're saying that part of the motivation for Saudi Arabia attacking Yemen is to intervene on behalf of Al-Qaeda?
Absolutely, to save it. Al-Qaeda serves as a proxy for Saudi Arabia and in part for the United States and the United Kingdom. ISIS is the same, and I want to bring what Mr. Trump said about it, that Obama and Hillary Clinton are responsible for the creation of ISIS, and I agree, because you cannot have a fighting force well equipped without state support, and that is the reality, that thousands of people who came from across the globe went through Turkey, and the United States, who has massive presence in Turkey, knew about it, and the Turkish government knew about it. So it is something we know in the region, and we should start talking about it much more openly, that these terrorist groups are not allowed or able to work, terrorist groups or not, armed groups in general, are not able to operate and survive without strong state support. Even armed groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, who are supported by their people, by their communities, they still need state support from Iran, from Qatar, from other countries to stay afloat. So Al-Qaeda was not able to stay afloat for over 20 years without state support, and that came from Saudi Arabia and other countries. And the United States knew about it, the UK, and even France, because that's the unfortunate reality that we have seen in the region, in Yemen and in different countries in the Middle East.
So let me go to more of this Associated Press report on the Saudi-led coalition's alliance with Al-Qaeda. The AP spoke to some tribal leaders, community members who have been brokering deals and observing this alliance between Al-Qaeda and the Saudi-led coalition.
الامريكان على اطلاع بكل ما يدور، واكثر مما نعلم نحن واكثر مما نعرف، هم عارفين كل شيء، وكانوا على علم بالوساطه هذه اول باول وخطوه بخطوه، وكانوا تقريبا غاضين الطرف ومباركين، وحبوا مثل هذه الوساطات.
القاعدة بدأت من الأيام الأولى، أقدر أقول من الأسابيع الأولى، أتكلم عن شهر أو شهرين، فظهرت جماعات وحماة العقيدة وأنصار الشريعة تعز إذا تركت لقدرها، لا أعتقد أنها إن لم تكن أسوأ من الموصلة والرقة.
So those are some Yemeni civilians who spoke to the Associated Press about these deals between Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, and the Saudi-led coalition. Now I want to go to a clip of Catherine Zimmerman, who talked about the sort of bind, supposedly, that the U.S. is in terms of allowing this alliance between its own coalition that it supports and Al-Qaeda.
Within the Yemeni civil war, American interests and Al-Qaeda interests align. The Houthis are a common enemy, or adversary, especially in the American case. It doesn't make sense that the United States has identified Al-Qaeda as a threat, but that we have common interests inside of Yemen, and that in some places it looks like we're looking the other way.
That's Catherine Zimmerman of the American Enterprise Institute speaking to the Associated Press. So Ali, if it's true that the U.S. is looking the other way, essentially, as Ms. Zimmerman says, why is this not a big scandal in the U.S., which just not too long ago was attacked by Al-Qaeda and which is, supposedly leading a global war on terror against it?
I think Catherine is completely wrong, and she's trying to whitewash the U.S. role here. The United States is not looking the other way. The United States is involved. And so I have no idea that the United States had a problem with the so-called Houthis or Ansarullah. I have no recollection of any attacks by the Ansarullah or Houthis against the United States. It was Al-Qaeda and the Arabian Peninsula that has attacked and killed Americans and waged terrorist attacks on other people. What we learn here is that there are people who are willing, for their own ideological beliefs, to say that it's okay to align with Al-Qaeda, a terrorist group that everybody agrees that they are. And it's okay because we don't happen to like the other people who are not terrorists, not even by our standards, but because they are independent of the United States, and they don't want to be subject to the US or the UK demands. And this is a reality in the Middle East. We have come to this, that the United States and the UK especially have been behind fomenting and establishing or supporting terrorist groups to reach their interest. I think the United States should be much more honest, and and they should have the courage to come and speak to this and own this fact that the United States is supporting terrorism in the Middle East. And that started with the Obama administration, so it's not a Trump administration issue. This is the U.S. government, and that has been the reality that we have talked about for years, and but ignored by the United States government. I think the American people should be aware of this, that those claims that the U.S. government is fighting terrorism might not be completely honest.
Well, there we go. And I appreciate that correction, because if, as you say, it's not just a matter of the U.S. looking the other way, but being actively involved in this, then of course the scandal is much bigger and the outrage should be much bigger. And that's why it's just so striking to see the relative silence here in the U.S. to stories like this. We're out of time though, so we'll leave it there. Ali Al-Ahmed, founder and director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on The Real News.